Hi there, and welcome to Her Season of Strength, where women over 40 reclaim their bodies, their energy, and their voices without apologies. I'm Kim Duffy, registered dietitian, personal trainer, mom, and your biggest hype woman when it comes to aging like you mean it. This show isn't about chasing skinny or counting wrinkles. It's about building real strength, physical, emotional, and hormonal. Each week, I'll share straight-talking nutrition tips, sustainable fitness strategies, and conversations that help you feel powerful in your skin once again. Menopause isn't an ending, it's only the beginning. This is your season of strength. Hello and welcome back to Her Season of Strength. I am so happy you're here, especially for this awesome topic that we're going to talk about today. So I should give you a little setup. So last Tuesday, I did a bonus presentation for my Fit After 50 peeps. So I just finished my third run of the Fit After 50 Plus program, and it just finished here last Sunday. And I gave them a bonus presentation that was titled Nutritional Strategies. Actually, it was called Feed the Change, Nutritional Strategies to Overcome Menopausal Symptoms. We talked about things like hot flashes and brain fog and weight gain and, let me think of fatigue. And there was one other one I'm trying to think. My brain's a little bit slow moving today. But anyway, it was a really good discussion. I kind of after the fact was like, okay, I packed this with a little too much information and I need to take a bit of a step back and maybe simplify it a little bit easier so that it's easier to follow and more exciting. And but I got a lot of great feedback from the women that came, and it was just really good. It is something that I think I am going to probably break it up because there's so much information, but break it up into piece by piece, each symptom and kind of what nutritional strategies that we can use in order to help these. And there are things that we can do for each and every one of them because there's a real physical reason why they're happening in our bodies, right? It isn't just some like, oh, we have no idea why this is going on. We know what's going on. But anyway, so hot flashes was one of the things I talked about. So I thought, you know what? I am just going to take this one piece and I am going to put it into a podcast episode because it's super interesting what, current science, what current research is saying. So about these hot flashes. So I am just a normally hot running person. I seem to get hot really easy. But one of the things I noticed that was, like early in my 40s, before I even thought about like, oh, I'm in perimenopause, right? I would wake up at night literally drenched. I would have sweat like running down my legs. I'd have to change my pajamas. And I just thought, oh, I just wore too warm of jammies, or I covered up too much with covers, and that must be why I got hot. I wasn't thinking about the fact that, oh, this is night sweats, right? Or these are hot flashes during the night or whatever. And it's so interesting. But now I can't say that I have like all of a sudden just sweat from head to toe, but I do get hot and cold very easily. So I constantly have some socks or a sweatshirt or layers that I can throw on and off and on and off. I mean, it's a kind of a constant game all day long as I'm putting a jacket on and off. But anyway, I don't know if that's the same for you. And I think it's different for every person. Every person is affected a little bit differently. But so today I want to talk a little bit about kind of what is going on in your body when a hot flash hits. We'll talk about the role of estrogen and more specifically its absence in this whole drama. I want to talk about kind of the foods, the nutrients, and lifestyle habits that research is showing can make a real big difference. Take a little bit of a deep dive into soy conversation. And I know I did an episode here, and I will link it in the show notes, specifically on soy. And that would be a good one to go back to and listen to if you haven't listened to it yet, because I think it's important. I think we have a lot of misconception about soy and its relation to breast cancer, and a lot of people are avoiding it for not the right reasons. And then lastly, I want to talk about kind of a practical, actionable game plan that you can try this week and see if it makes a difference. So, by the end of this episode, you're going to understand your body a little better. You're going to have, a few real tools in your hands, not, guesses or not wellness trends by influencers, or just kind of some real actual evidence. So let's dive in. So first of all, the mechanism of a hot flash. As our estrogen declines in perimenopause and menopause, the brain's temperature regulating center, it's called the hypothalamus, it gets kind of hypersensitive to tiny changes in our core body temperature. So we kind of think of that like a little bit like a thermostat in your house has a faulty sensor. So your body kind of perceives a temperature threat that isn't really there. And it responds by rapidly dilating blood vessels near the skin surface to just get rid of heat. And what happens, or what are we feeling then? We're feeling sudden flushing, sweating, racing heart, and that wave of kind of intense warmth. Something kind of usually followed by the chills. They can last anywhere between 1 and 5 minutes typically, and happen several times a day or night, where we call them the night sweats. They can begin years before your last period, often in our mid to late 40s. And usually they're driven by fluctuating and declining estrogen, which destabilizes our, thermoregulatory zone. What's so interesting is this zone, which is the range where your body temperature feels comfortable, it narrows significantly in menopause. It makes us more reactive to normal temperature fluctuations. There's these two neurotransmitters called norepinephrine and serotonin, and they're also involved. And this is why stress and certain foods and drinks can be really strong triggers. So some of these strong triggers are going to be like alcohol, caffeine, spicy foods, stress, heat, tight clothing, surprisingly, and even certain rooms or situations. So think about it. Do you notice any patterns in your life? Do you notice, that, oh yes, I have a glass of wine and it always will cause a hot flash, or maybe after you go to bed, or if I have caffeine a little bit too late in the afternoon, I notice it. So let's talk a little bit about soy, because I know some of you have been told to avoid it, some of you have been told to eat it, and I want to kind of give you a little bit about the actual science behind it. So soy contains these compounds called isoflavones, and they're specifically genistein and diazine, and they're phytoestrogens. And that sounds, phytoestrogens, that's estrogen, right? It must be the same as estrogen. They have a structure similar to estrogen. Okay, similar is the key word there. And they can bind to estrogen receptors in our body, but with a much weaker activity than actual estrogen. So think of them as kind of this gentle nudge on that receptor rather than the full signal. So there was a big study in 2021 that was published in the journal called Menopause, and it's the Journal of the Menopause Society, and it found that low-fat plant-based diet that included half of a cup of cooked soybeans per day, it reduced hot flash frequency by 84%, and it eliminated moderate to severe hot flashes in about 59% of the participants, and that's significant. And it was peer-reviewed. This is like a good research-backed, science that's worth highlighting. There was another meta-analysis done in 2023, and that was published by Complementary Therapies in Medicine, and it analyzed 17 different randomized control trials and found that soy isoflavones supplementation significantly reduced both the frequency and severity of hot flashes compared to the placebo. Now, I'm not really going to talk about supplementing. Like, I don't necessarily want you guys to start popping soy supplements. Okay, I don't think that is the answer here. I think looking for how we can add it in food form. And research, it suggests that the benefit might be strongest in women who are equal producers, and that's about 30 to 50% of Western women and a higher percentage of Asian women. They have gut bacteria that converts the soy isoflavone called diadzine into equal, and it's EQUOL, and it's kind of a stronger, more potent compound. And this might help explain why soy has such significant effects in some women, but more modest effects in others. So Japanese women who typically consume, higher amounts of soy throughout their lives report significantly lower rates of hot flashes than Western women. Though this is likely, not just a one thing. It's probably a combination of both, diet, genetics, as well as gut microbiome factors. So the fear, around soy and hormones largely came from animal studies using very high concentrations of isolated isoflavones, not whole food soy in normal dietary amounts. For most women, moderate whole food soy consumption, like 1 or 2 servings per day of edamame or tofu, tempeh, miso, soy milk, it's considered safe and may be beneficial. Women with a personal history of hormone receptor positive breast cancer should discuss soy with their oncologist before increasing intake. As the data, in that population, it's a little bit more nuanced. But understanding that, just like with all other supplements, that when you're consuming it in food form, it's just a whole different world compared to just isolating it and taking it in a pill form. So my recommendations are to prioritize those whole food sources. So edamame, tofu, tempeh, miso, unsweetened soy milk. You aim for maybe 25 to 50 milligrams of soy isoflavones per day, which is about 1 serving of edamame or tofu. And processed soy, so that's going to be like your soy protein isolate in your protein bars or your highly processed soy snacks and foods. It doesn't contain the same benefit profile. Okay. So now let's talk about some other foods and nutrients that help. So first of all is flax seeds or lignans. Flaxseed contain lignans, which is another type of phytoestrogen it's kind of a similar but a distinct mechanism. Studies show that like 1 to 2 tablespoons of ground flaxseed per day may modestly reduce hot flash frequency. Ground flaxseed, it's far more bioavailable than the whole seeds. Okay, so, crushing it right before you're taking it or purchasing the ground flaxseed and throw it in the freezer because it can get rancid quick and easy. It helps to support gut health, great fiber, and it also has cardiovascular benefits, especially with menopause. Now, fiber and the estrobolome, which is the gut, our gut microbiome, it plays a large role in estrogen metabolism through in a collection of bacteria called the estrobolome. So a high fiber diet like veggies and beans and legumes and whole grains and fruits that supports that diverse or variety of gut microbiome that helps regulate how our estrogen is processed and reabsorbed. So a low fiber, highly processed diet can actually disrupt this system and it can worsen those hormonal fluctuations. All right. Next is omega-3 fatty acids. So, research is kind of mixed on this. Some studies suggest that maybe omega-3s may help reduce hot flash frequency and mood disruption in menopause. They also have strong cardiovascular and anti-inflammatory benefits that matter huge for us ladies in midlife. So some ways that we can get those really good omega-3 fatty acids are going to be your fatty fish. So your salmon, your sardines, your mackerel. Going to get them in walnuts, chia seeds, and flax seeds. Those are kind of the biggest sources. Next, moving on to magnesium. I know last week I talked about magnesium and the importance with bone health, especially when, mixed with vitamin D and K2. If you haven't listened to that, go on ahead and listen to it. It's episode 39. But magnesium is so important in our bodies. It's involved in over 300 enzymatic processes, including our nervous system regulation. There are several small studies that suggest that magnesium supplementation, usually I recommend magnesium glycinate or malate forms, 300 to 400 milligrams before bed. They can reduce hot flash frequency and improve sleep quality. And what's surprising is magnesium deficiency is super common, especially in women who eat a diet that's higher in processed foods or who are under chronic stress. Okay. Next is vitamin E. There's been a few older but notable studies that found that vitamin E mixed tocopherols, or approximately 400 to 800 IUs a day, can modestly reduce hot flash frequency. It's not a magic bullet, but it's kind of a low-risk addition with additional antioxidant benefits. Vitamin E is usually not one that I'm recommending all the time or frequently. Vitamin D, I think, is a little bit more important, but they're both fat-soluble vitamins, right? So that just means that compared to water-soluble vitamins, which are going to be like your B vitamins, which if we consume too much of it, we're just going to pee it out. These can be stored in fat tissue. And also when we're consuming them, we want to make sure we're consuming them with a little bit of fat so it helps us to absorb them better. And those are going to be those vitamins A, D, E, and K. Those are the fat-soluble vitamins. So let's talk a little bit about what foods can make hot flashes worse. First of all is alcohol. It's a vasodilator, so it's going to widen those blood vessels, which is exactly what we don't want. Next is caffeine. It stimulates the nervous system. It raises our cortisol levels, and it can be a direct trigger for many women. Doesn't mean you can never have it, but caffeine's one of those that, we have it in moderation. Maybe we limit it to the morning. We try not to be drinking it all day long, and especially not in the afternoon when it can affect our sleep. Next is spicy foods. Capsaicin activates the same heat receptors in the hypothalamus. So you might notice that when you eat something spicy, that you're more likely to have a hot flash. Next is highly refined carbohydrates and sugar. They can spike the blood sugar, which can worsen our hormone volatility. Right? So we understand, how important it is for us to focus on blood sugar regulation and control during this time in our lives, because when our blood sugars are all over the place and on this roller coaster, we are going to notice more inflammation in our body. We are going to notice more weight gain. We are going to notice decrease. It can affect our energy levels, right? When we have that blood sugar spike and fall, we're going to notice that we're more fatigued. So important to focus on maintaining that good blood sugar control. And then lastly is processed foods that are high in sodium. This can worsen our sweating and also can work to dehydrate us. So now let's talk about some lifestyle factors that can really make a big difference when it comes to hot flashes. Regular moderate exercise, so particularly strength training, as well as, cardio or aerobic exercise. It's been shown in multiple studies to reduce hot flash frequency and severity. It also supports our thermoregulation, meaning it's just helping our body to regulate our temperature. It's going to reduce those stress hormones like cortisol, improve sleep, and as always, so important, maintains muscle mass as well as bone density, which these are so critical when we hit menopause. We're shooting for a minimum of 150 minutes per week of moderate activity. Next is stress and cortisol. So cortisol and norepinephrine are both implicated in triggering hot flashes. So chronic stress can keep those hormones elevated. So, doing things like practicing, breathing and yoga, meditation, and even just incorporating in some good daily walks can significantly reduce our cortisol load. One breathing technique that you could try is just slow, deep breathing, about 6 breaths per minute. Has been shown in clinical studies to reduce hot flash intensity just in the moment. I mean, that's pretty easy, right? So just nice, deep breaths, because so many of us are running through our day and we're just shallow breathing all day long, and we're not actually taking those nice, deep cleansing breaths. Next is sleep hygiene. Night sweats and hot flashes, they can really mess with our sleep, and we know that poor sleep worsens hormonal dysregulation. So keeping our bedroom cool, maybe somewhere between 65 and 68 degrees Fahrenheit, using moisture wicking bedding, and, trying to establish a nice, consistent wind down routine to decrease the impact of those nighttime hot flashes. Next is alcohol and smoking. Both are clinically documented to increase hot flash frequency and severity. This isn't about perfection. It's not like you can never have a glass of wine. But, if your hot flashes are significantly impacting your quality of life, these are, the first lifestyle variables that are seriously worth addressing. And lastly is hydration. Dehydration, or not getting enough fluids in, can worsen your hot flash intensity. So the sweating during our hot flashes also accelerates fluid loss. So we're trying to shoot for drinking at least 8 to 10 cups of water a day, and more if we are exercising. And making sure that, if we're sweating overly heavily, we're making sure that we're incorporating in those good electrolytes into our fluids, and that's sodium, potassium, magnesium. Those are really important too. So I just kind of bring this around, recap this. Hot flashes, they are caused by real physiological responses to those hormonal changes, or that the estrogen spiking and falling up and down is, and just in general going down, not just something that we have to just deal with and white knuckle it through, right? There's things that we can do. Soy isoflavones have some of the most compelling evidence of any dietary intervention, with studies showing significant reductions in frequency and severity with those populations that are consuming soy more often, especially in those whole food sources. Making sure we're supporting our gut microbiome, and how we do that is we're eating those good fiber, shooting for 25 to 30 grams of fiber per day in the whole food form, and that's going to help regulate how our body is handling that estrogen, what is being reabsorbed, what is being excreted. And flaxseed, magnesium, omega-3s, and vitamin E can all have kind of supportive roles. They can be generally helpful. Some things that we eliminate can make a big difference, as big of a difference as what we add. So trying to decrease alcohol, refined sugar, and spicy foods. And then making sure that we're finding ways to manage our stress. Sometimes we can't get rid of stress, right? It's like, I have this high stress job, or I have, lots of little kids running around, or grandkids, or, I have a stressful life. We can't always change those things, but we can change how we manage it. We can change how we deal with it. Are we taking time for ourselves? Are we doing self-care? Are we getting outside and feeling the sunshine on our face and going for just a nice leisurely walk? These things are all so important. They are core strategy in helping us to deal with stress. And also just getting in that movement. It's huge when it comes to, regulating our thermostats. So what are some things that you can start with? Just 3 simple things you can start with. One would be add 1 serving of whole food soy daily. So maybe you throw some edamame on your salad, or maybe you throw some tofu on, your lunch or dinner meal, or maybe you put it in a scramble for breakfast. Maybe you make soup with miso. Those are 3 easy ways to do it. Next, you can stir in a tablespoon of ground flaxseed into your morning yogurt or your oatmeal or into your smoothie. And third would be start tracking your personal hot flash triggers for 1 week and just kind of notice patterns around food and stress and sleep and alcohol or caffeine. Because these hot flashes, they're your body that it's trying to communicate a significant hormonal shift. You don't have to suffer quietly, and you don't have to immediately reach for medication as your only option. Though for some women, that absolutely is the right call, and there's no shame in that either. What I want for you is options, right? I want information, I want agency, and that's what we're building here together. So if this episode helped you, please take 30 seconds, share it with a friend, or leave a review. I would really appreciate it. It just helps other women to find this show. And if you haven't followed it yet, hit that button so you never miss an episode. Remember, this is about progress over perfection, and we're in this for the long haul. This is your season of strength. Have a great day.